Nanny bathed twins in metal tub, but when single dad saw... Emily Johnson wiped away tears as she scrubbed the twins' clothes in the laundry sink. She had been fired that morning after the single father caught her bathing the babies in an old metal tub in the backyard of their Beverly Hills mansion. It all happened when Robert Anderson came home early from his investor meeting and saw the scene that would change everything. Emily, just 25 years old, was gently holding little Ethan while pouring warm water over him and his brother Mason, who were happily playing in the makeshift basin. The businessman exploded with rage. "What the hell are you doing to my children?" Robert shouted, his eyes bloodshot. Emily was so startled she nearly dropped Ethan. The babies, who had been laughing, began crying in fear at their father's tone. "Mr. Robert, I can explain," Emily tried to say, clutching both babies to her chest. "Explain what? That you're treating my kids like animals? Bathing them in an old tub as if they were dogs?" Robert's voice echoed across the yard. "The house water's been cut off since yesterday, sir. I brought clean water from the neighbor, Mrs. Margaret's well, so the babies wouldn't stay dirty. They had diaper rash and needed—" "I don't want to hear excuses," Robert interrupted. "Pack your things and get out of my house now. I never want to see you near my children again." Emily's heart shattered. In the 3 months she'd worked there, she'd grown attached to the twins as if they were her own. Ethan and Mason, who had cried day and night ever since their mother abandoned them at 2 months old, had finally found peace in her arms. "Please, Mr. Robert, at least let me dress them. They're wet and might catch a chill," Emily pleaded, her eyes filled with tears. "I'll do it myself. Get out." Robert grabbed a towel and roughly wrapped the babies, making them cry even harder. Emily ran to the small back room where she lived, grabbed her little cardboard suitcase and returned to say goodbye to the babies. But Robert had already taken them inside. She touched the metal tub one last time, remembering all the tender baths she'd given the little ones there whenever the house water ran out. Walter, the 62-year-old gardener who'd worked there for 15 years, appeared in the yard with a sad expression. "Emily, child, this is so unfair," he said, removing his hat. "I saw everything from the kitchen window. You did nothing wrong." "Thank you, Mr. Walter. You've always been kind to me." Emily hugged the gardener, who had become like a grandfather to her. "Listen here, my dear. That man is blinded by anger and grief. His company is failing. His wife left him with the boys. He's not thinking straight." Walter held Emily's calloused hands. "But you can't give up on those babies. They need you." "How can I come back, Mr. Walter? He humiliated me, said I treated the kids like animals. I just wanted to bathe them because of their rash and the water." "I know, child, I know. You're the best thing that's happened to those children. Before you came, they cried so much the neighbors complained to the city." Emily remembered the day she arrived 3 months ago. She'd fled her sister's house in Oakland, where she'd worked unpaid as a maid, caring for her nieces and nephews, while her older sister worked 3 jobs to support the family. When her brother-in-law started harassing her, she had no choice but to leave. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It means so much to us just starting out. Now continuing. She had found the nanny ad in the neighborhood paper and showed up at Robert's house with just a change of clothes and a strong desire to work. The businessman, desperate because no nanny could calm the twins, hired her on the spot despite having no references. On the first day, Emily noticed Ethan had an allergy to the formula milk they were giving him. The baby's little belly was always swollen, and he cried in pain. She suggested switching to goat's milk, which she bought with her own money from her first day's pay. Within a week, the boy was completely different. Mason, on the other hand, had reflux and needed to sleep with his head slightly elevated. Emily improvised a small pillow with folded cloths, and the boy began sleeping through the night. For the first time in months, Robert got to sleep too. But not everything was rosy in the Beverly Hills mansion. Martha, the 58-year-old housekeeper, who had worked there for 10 years, wasn't at all pleased with Emily's arrival. She had previously taken care of the babies haphazardly, just to fulfill her duties, and now saw her place being taken by a young woman who worked miracles with the children. "Robert, you should keep an eye on that girl," Martha said to her employer one morning as she served coffee. "Yesterday I saw her going through your things in the office." "What do you mean, going through my things?" Robert looked up from his newspaper. She was near your desk, looking at some papers. When she saw me, she quickly pretended otherwise, Martha lied. In truth, Emily had only entered the office to bring Robert a glass of water. He had forgotten to take his blood pressure medication. She had noticed the prescription on the desk and, concerned, organized his scattered medicines. And another thing, Robert, she keeps bringing homemade food for the babies. Who knows what's in that food? Martha continued. What Martha didn't mention was that Emily made homemade baby food for the twins because she had noticed they didn't adjust well to store-bought purees. With the little money she earned, she bought fresh fruits and vegetables and prepared nutritious meals for Ethan and Mason. Martha, are you suggesting Emily wants to harm my children? Robert asked suspiciously. I'm not suggesting anything. I just think you should hire someone with references, from an agency. This girl came out of nowhere. You don't even know where she's from. Martha had her reasons for wanting Emily gone. For years, she had skimmed small amounts from the monthly grocery money, claiming prices had gone up. With Emily buying things for the babies and organizing the house, Martha feared being caught. Besides, she had grown accustomed to selling the expensive gifts Robert received from suppliers and clients. Since the businessman was always busy trying to save his company from bankruptcy, he never noticed the missing imported wines and specialty cheese baskets. But Emily, always attentive to details, had once asked about a wine bottle she saw Martha carrying in her bag. I was taking it home to make a special risotto for Mr. Robert, Martha had lied at the time. Emily didn't question it, but she tucked the information away. Her observant nature, honed since childhood when she had to care for her younger siblings while her mother worked, made her notice things others missed. Now, sitting on the bus back to Oakland, Emily revisited all the special moments she had shared with Ethan and Mason. The baby's first giggles, Mason's first steps while clutching her finger, how Ethan would calm down when she sang the lullabies her grandmother had taught her. She had learned to care for children as a girl herself, when her mother, Rose, worked as a cleaner in several homes and had to leave her children in the care of her eldest daughter. Emily was just 8 years old when she took on the responsibility of caring for her 3 younger siblings. Mrs. Rose had taught her daughter that love isn't bought with money, but with dedication and tenderness. My dear, she always said, it doesn't matter if we have little. What matters is giving our best to those we love. That lesson had shaped Emily's entire personality. When she arrived at Robert's house and saw 2 crying babies, abandoned by their mother, and with a father working 16-hour days trying to save his company, her maternal heart fully awakened. She had turned the simple back room into a cozy little space. With cheap fabrics bought at the market, she made colorful curtains. With plastic bottles and paint, she crafted mobiles that mesmerized the babies. With cardboard boxes, she built a little toy corner. Everything was made with love and creativity. But what stood out most was Emily's tireless devotion. She woke at 5 in the morning to prepare bottles at the exact temperature each baby preferred. Mason liked his lukewarm, Ethan preferred his warmer. She always tested it on her wrist before feeding them. During the day, she created educational games tailored to their age. She sang, told made-up stories, and made funny faces that sent them into fits of laughter. At night, she stayed awake at the first sound, always ready to soothe any cry or discomfort. Robert, buried in his company's financial troubles, barely noticed these details. His construction firm, once one of the largest in New York City, was facing its worst crisis ever. 3 major projects had been halted due to irregularities he discovered too late, caused by his partner's mismanagement, who had fled the country with a significant portion of the company's funds. To make matters worse, Jessica, his ex-wife, had decided motherhood wasn't for her just months after the twins were born. She simply packed her bags and moved abroad, leaving only a letter saying she needed to find herself and that the children would be better off without her. Jessica's abandonment was a devastating blow to Robert. He had always dreamed of a big, close-knit family, yet there he was, alone with 2 newborns and a company on the brink of collapse. His mother, Mrs. Elizabeth, had offered to help, but at 71, she no longer had the energy to care for twins. Son, you need to hire a professional to look after these children, Mrs. Elizabeth had advised, and you need to take care of yourself too. You're thin with dark circles under your eyes. This can't go on." Mrs. Elizabeth had been a seamstress all her life, supporting Robert and his two brothers after her husband died in a workplace accident. She knew suffering and struggle, but she also recognized true love when she saw it. From the very first day she saw Emily caring for her grandchildren, Mrs. Elizabeth noticed something special. The way the girl looked at the babies, anticipated their needs, and came up with creative solutions for every problem. It reminded her of herself when she was young, having to be resourceful to raise her children with little. "Robert, that girl is a blessing for these children," Mrs. Elizabeth remarked after a visit. "Did you see how calm the babies are around her, and how carefully she tends to every detail?" But Robert, blinded by stress and the pressure to maintain appearances, couldn't see past Emily's humble background. To him, the children of a successful businessman deserved the best of everything, and the best meant expensive. He didn't understand that what Ethan and Mason truly needed was exactly what Emily provided: unconditional love, constant attention, and creativity to overcome any material limitations. The babies didn't need expensive toys, they needed someone to play with them. They didn't need designer clothes, they needed someone to wash them with care and iron them with dedication. The water in the Beverly Hills mansion had been cut off the day before due to a late payment. Robert was so focused on the company's problems that he forgot to settle the bill. Emily, noticing the situation, didn't want to bother her employer and took it upon herself to solve the problem. She had woken up at 4 in the morning and walked to her neighbor's house, Mrs. Margaret, a 70-year-old woman who had lived on the same street for 40 years. She explained the situation and asked to fill a few buckets with clean water from the artesian well in Mrs. Margaret's backyard. "You're so devoted to those children," Mrs. Margaret had said, helping Emily carry the buckets. "Ever since you arrived at that house, I haven't heard the babies crying in the middle of the night." "They're special, Mrs. Margaret. They just needed a little love and attention," Emily replied, balancing the heavy buckets. "And you, dear, do you have family? Where are you from?" the curious neighbor asked. Emily told her story to Mrs. Margaret, how she had lost her parents in a car accident when she was 15, how she and her 3 younger siblings went to live with her older sister, Patricia, who was only 19 at the time and already married. Patricia did her best to keep the family together, but it was hard. Her husband, Michael, didn't want the responsibility of supporting 4 extra people. Emily's younger siblings went to live with distant relatives, and she stayed as a sort of servant in her sister's home. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. For 7 years, Emily took care of Patricia's 2 children, did all the housework, cooked, cleaned, and received nothing but food and a roof over her head. When Michael started making inappropriate advances, she knew she had to leave. "You understand, Mrs. Margaret, I couldn't stay in that situation. I'd rather leave with nothing than endure certain things," Emily explained, her eyes downcast. "I do understand, dear. You did the right thing. A woman must preserve her dignity above all else," Mrs. Margaret said, shaking her head wisely. "And now? Will you look for another job?" "I don't know, Mrs. Margaret. I love taking care of Ethan and Mason. They've grown so attached to me. But their father fired me today, said I was mistreating them by bathing them in a washtub." "A washtub? What washtub?" Emily explained the water being cut off and how she had improvised the baby's bath in the backyard. "Oh, my dear, that man is out of his mind," Mrs. Margaret exclaimed. "My mother bathed me in an aluminum tub when I was little, and look at me, 70 years old, strong and healthy. The problem isn't where you bathe them, it's the love you put into it." That's what I tried to explain, but he was so angry. "I think he's very stressed about the company's problems," Emily sighed. "Listen here, sweetheart. When a man has problems, sometimes he takes it out on those around him, but that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Give it time. He'll realize the mistake he made." Mrs. Margaret had no idea how prophetic her words were. At that very moment in the Beverly Hills mansion, chaos was unfolding. Robert had tried to bathe the twins in the master bathroom, but the babies wouldn't stop crying. Ethan thrashed so much that Robert was afraid he'd slip from his hands. Mason screamed as if he were being tortured. In 15 minutes, the bathroom was flooded, The babies were crying desperately, and Robert was completely lost. "Mrs. Martha!" Robert shouted. "Come help me here!" The housekeeper appeared at the bathroom door and nearly laughed at the scene. Robert was drenched, the babies slipping through his inexperienced hands, water everywhere. "Mr. Anderson, I told you firing Emily wasn't a good idea," said Mrs. Martha, secretly pleased with the chaos. Even though she had contributed to Emily's dismissal, Mrs. Martha now saw the chance to become indispensable again. If the babies relied on her for basic care, her job would be secure and she could return to her little schemes. "Please help me bathe them," Robert pleaded, exhausted. Mrs. Martha picked up Ethan, but her clumsiness with babies was immediately obvious. She held the boy away from her body, as if afraid of getting wet or dirty. Ethan, sensing the coldness in her touch, cried even harder. "They're like this because they miss Emily," Mrs. Martha said. "Babies get used to one person and act up when things change." "So what do I do?" asked Robert, holding Mason, who was hiccuping from crying so much. "Hire another nanny, from an agency, a professional," Mrs. Martha replied quickly. The next day, Robert called 3 nanny agencies in New York City. The first to arrive was a very serious 40-year-old woman who treated the babies like objects. She handled Ethan and Mason mechanically, without affection, just following protocols. "Children must follow a strict routine," the professional nanny explained. "Bath at 7, bottle at 8, nap at 9. No coddling or holding outside scheduled times." Ethan and Mason completely rejected the new nanny. They cried when she approached, refused bottles from her hands, and couldn't sleep. Within 2 days, the situation was unbearable. "Sir, I think these children have behavioral issues," the nanny said. "I've never seen such difficult babies. They might need medication to calm down." Robert dismissed the first nanny and tried a second. This one was younger but had no real experience. She knew theory, had taken courses, but in practice she couldn't handle the twins' distress. In a week, 4 different nannies had come through the house. All failed to soothe Ethan and Mason. The babies lost weight, developed rashes from sitting in dirty diapers too long, and began showing signs of childhood depression. Dr. Frank, the twins' pediatrician, was firm during an emergency visit. "Robert, these children are suffering from severe separation anxiety. They formed a very strong maternal bond with someone who's no longer here, who cared for them before." "The nanny, Emily, but I had to let her go," Robert admitted, embarrassed. "Why? Did she mistreat them?" "No, it wasn't that. It's just, she bathed them in a metal tub in the backyard." Robert realized how ridiculous his explanation sounded. Dr. Frank, who had treated Ethan and Mason since birth, remembered perfectly how the children were before Emily arrived. Babies who cried endlessly, with digestive issues, reflux, who couldn't sleep. And then, as if by miracle, they had transformed. "Robert, are you telling me you fired the one person who made your children happy and healthy because she improvised a bath?" The doctor couldn't hide his disbelief. "Doctor, I don't want my children raised without standards. They deserve the best," Robert tried to justify. The best for these children was exactly what they had, someone who truly loved them. "Robert, as a doctor, I've seen many wealthy, materially well cared for children who were unhappy because they lacked real love. And I've seen poor children who bathed in tubs but were radiant with happiness because they felt loved." Dr. Frank's words echoed in Robert's head for days. But his pride and prejudice were still greater than his ability to admit his mistake. The situation at home worsened each day. The babies barely ate, cried most of the time, and Robert was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. The company was still in crisis, and now he had to deal with problems at home too. It was Walter who took action. One afternoon, after seeing Ethan cry for 3 hours straight, the gardener knocked on Robert's office door. "Mr. Robert, I need to speak with you," Walter said, removing his hat. "Not now, Walter. I'm trying to sort out some contracts here," Robert replied without looking up from his papers. "It's about the boys, sir." Robert finally looked at the gardener. Walter had worked there for 15 years. He'd seen Robert grow the business, get married, and now he was watching everything fall apart. "Spit it out, Walter. You made a big mistake firing Emily," Walter said, cutting straight to the point. "Walter, that's none of your business," Robert answered coldly. "I'm sorry, sir, but it is my business. I've worked in this house for 15 years. I saw you arrive here single, saw you get married, saw the boys being born, saw Jessica leave. And I saw those babies crying day and night until Emily came." Robert stopped writing and looked at the gardener. "Go on." "Mr. Robert, that girl changed those babies' lives, and yours too, even if you don't realize it." "When was the last time you had a full night's sleep before Emily arrived?" Robert thought. It was true. Since Emily started working, he could sleep because the babies slept through the night. "And when was the last time you came home and found the babies laughing and playing?" Walter continued. "Walter, she bathed my children in an old wash tub." "So what, sir?" The gardener interrupted with a courage he'd never shown before. "My grandmother bathed me in a wooden basin. My mother bathed me in a clean kerosene tin. And you, when you were little and visited your grandmother's house in the countryside, didn't you bathe in the makeshift shower in the backyard?" Robert remembered the vacations at his maternal grandmother's house in Vermont. Agnes, his grandmother, was a simple woman who raised 12 children in a home without luxuries, but it was in her house that Robert had his fondest childhood memories: the outdoor baths, the food cooked on a wood stove, the games in the dirt. "Walter." "Mr. Robert, Emily wasn't mistreating the boys. She was caring for them with love. The water was cut off. She could have just waited for you to fix it. But no, she worried about the baby's well-being and took action, and you punished her for it." Walter took a deep breath before continuing. "That girl spent her own salary buying things for the babies. She came here 2 hours early every day to prepare special food for them, stayed up all night when they were sick. Mr. Robert, Emily loves those boys as if they were her own." "How do you know all this?" "Because I pay attention, sir. I see things, and I see that since she left, this house has turned into hell. The boys won't stop crying, you don't sleep, don't eat. You're ruining your health." Robert knew Walter was right, but he still fought against his pride. "Even if I wanted to rehire her, Walter, she wouldn't come back. I humiliated her, said terrible things." "Then you'll have to swallow your pride and go after her, apologize, and hope she has a heart big enough to forgive." That night, Robert couldn't sleep. Ethan and Mason cried alternately from 11 at night until 4 in the morning. Martha had offered to stay with them, but her impatience was obvious. She held them any way she could, unable to calm them down, and several times Robert found her in the bedroom scrolling through her phone while the babies cried in their crib. Around 5 in the morning, Mason started coughing. At first, Robert thought it was just throat irritation from all the crying, but the cough worsened, and by 7 in the morning, both babies had a fever. Dr. Frank was called for an emergency home visit. "Robert, these children are developing stress-induced pneumonia," the doctor said after examining the twins. "Their immune systems are compromised by their emotional state." "What do you mean, stress-induced pneumonia?" "When babies spend too much time in distress, crying, not eating properly, not sleeping well, their bodies become vulnerable. They caught a cold that turned into pneumonia because they're emotionally weak." Robert felt a tightness in his chest. "Will they be okay?" "They will, but they need to be hospitalized. And Robert, once they're discharged, you must address their emotional situation. They need the person who made them happy back." In the hospital, watching his little boys hooked up to machines, Robert finally understood the magnitude of what he had done. Ethan and Mason, already small for their age, looked even more fragile in their hospital cribs. The head nurse, Mrs. Catherine, a 65-year-old woman with 40 years of experience in pediatrics, was blunt with Robert. "Sir, these children aren't just sick in body. Their hearts are broken. In 40 years of caring for babies, I know when a child is suffering from emotional neglect. But they weren't abandoned. I'm here, taking care of them," Robert protested. "Sir, who was caring for them before? Because I see in their records that they were healthy, happy babies until 2 weeks ago." Robert told Mrs. Catherine about Emily. "And where is this young woman now?" I fired her." "Why?" Robert repeated the story about the washtub bath, feeling increasingly ridiculous. Mrs. Catherine looked at him with a mix of pity and indignation. "Sir, you fired a mother, because that's what this young woman was to your children. A mother. And you took her away from them over a metal tub? I didn't want my children to... What your children need is love, sir. And from what I see here, that young woman gave it in abundance. Your boys are heartsick, and until you bring her back, they won't fully recover. The words heartsick echoed in Robert's head. He looked at Ethan and Mason, so small and fragile, and finally understood he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On the third night in the hospital, Ethan took a turn for the worse and had to be moved to the pediatric ICU. Robert stayed up all night watching through the glass as his son struggled to breathe. That's when Mrs. Elizabeth, his mother, arrived at the hospital. At 71 years old, she had taken 3 buses to get there after receiving the call about her grandson's hospitalization. "My son, what happened to these children?" Mrs. Elizabeth asked, peering at her grandsons through the ICU windows. Robert told his mother everything: Emily's dismissal, the string of nannies who didn't work out, the baby's despair, and now the pneumonia. Mrs. Elizabeth listened in silence. When Robert finished, she shook her head sadly. "Robert, you learnt nothing from me. When you were little and your father passed, we had no money. Remember how our life was." Robert remembered. After his father died, Mrs. Elizabeth had supported her 3 children by taking in sewing work. The house was simple, the food was basic, the clothes were patched, but there was love in abundance. "I remember, Mom. You bathed in an aluminum basin with water I heated on the stove. Slept in a bed I made myself from crate wood. Ate simple food made with lots of love. And you were happy. The 3 of you were happy." "I know, Mom, but what, Robert? You got rich and forgot love can't be bought? Forgot the most important thing for a child is to feel loved, not to have the best of everything?" Mrs. Elizabeth took her son's hands. "That girl Emily, she was giving your children exactly what I gave you, real love, and you threw it away over a metal basin? What does it matter where she bathed them if they were happy?" "Mom, I lost my way. I've got so much trouble at the company, so much pressure. And when I saw that scene, I thought your children deserved more than real love. Robert, look what your pride has done. Your kids are hospitalized because you took their mother away." "Their mother? But Jessica left, son, abandoned those children. The one who stepped up as their mother was Emily, and you ripped her out of their lives." Robert looked again at Ethan and Mason. Mason slept sedated, hooked to machines monitoring his breathing. Ethan was doing slightly better, but still very weak. "What do I do now, Mom?" "You go after that girl. Apologize on your knees if you have to, and beg her to come back." "What if she doesn't want to? I humiliated her, Mom. Said she was treating my kids like animals." "Then you'll have to show her you recognize your mistake. Robert, that girl loves those children. If she sees you've truly changed, that you understand the value of what she did, maybe she'll forgive. But I don't even know where she's staying. Ask Walter. That man knows everything happening in the neighborhood." The next day, Ethan was discharged from the ICU, but both babies still needed to stay a few more days for observation. Robert took the chance to go to Walter's house. "Walter, I need your help," said Robert, finding the gardener watering the plants. "Of course, Mr. Robert. I need to find Emily. Do you know where she is?" Walter stopped watering and looked at his employer. "Looking to hire her back?" "I am. My kids, they're in the hospital. The doctor said they're sick from missing her. They need her back." "Mr. Robert, Emily isn't some object you can toss aside and pick back up when you need her. She has feelings. I know, Walter, I know I made a terrible mistake, but I have to try. For my kids." Walter sighed. "She's staying at Mrs. Margaret's place, the neighbor. Mrs. Margaret took her in after you fired her. But, Mr. Robert, I have to warn you, she's very hurt and she's caring for other children now." "Other children?" 3 orphaned siblings. Mrs. Margaret was sheltering temporarily. Emily offered to care for them in exchange for room and board. Robert felt a pang of jealousy. Emily was caring for other children, giving them the love his kids needed. "Where's Mrs. Margaret's house?" 3 houses down, sir. The blue one with the green gate. But mister, Robert, think carefully about what you'll say. Emily's a woman of principle. If you go there just to offer money, she won't accept. Robert walked to Mrs. Margaret's house with his heart racing. He didn't know what to say, how to approach Emily, how to explain he'd realized his mistake. The house was simple but well kept, with a small but flourishing garden. Robert rang the bell, and Mrs. Margaret answered. "Good afternoon. I'm Robert Anderson, your neighbor. I live 3 houses up the street." "Oh yes, I recognize you by sight. How can I help you?" "I'm looking for Emily. I know she's staying here with you." Mrs. Margaret looked him up and down before answering. "And what do you want with Emily?" "I need to talk to her. It's about my children." "The twins? Those babies who cried so much?" "Yes. They're in the hospital. They got sick and... well, the doctor said they need Emily back." Mrs. Margaret crossed her arms. "Mr. Robert, Emily told me what happened. How you humiliated her, accused her of mistreating the children just because she bathed them in the backyard. Ma'am, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I'm here to apologize and beg her to come back. Emily isn't here right now. She took the kids to the clinic for their vaccinations. But even if she were, I don't know if she'd want to talk to you. Please, Mrs. Margaret. My children are in the hospital. They're sick with longing for Emily. I was an idiot, I admit it. But they aren't to blame for my prejudice." Mrs. Margaret saw the sincerity in Robert's eyes. 70 years of life had taught her to distinguish true remorse from manipulation. "Sit here on the porch and wait for her. But I'll warn you, Emily is deeply hurt by what happened, and she's grown very attached to the children she's caring for now." Robert sat on the porch rocking chair and waited. Around 4 in the afternoon, he saw Emily coming down the street, carrying a 2-year-old girl in her arms and holding hands with 2 boys, ages 4 and 6. Emily stopped at the gate when she saw him. Even from a distance, Robert could see she had lost weight and had deep circles under her eyes. "Emily," Robert called, standing up. "Mr. Robert?" "What are you doing here?" Emily asked, clearly surprised and wary. "I need to talk to you, please." "Aunt Emily, who's that man?" asked the 6-year-old boy, Jack Peter, hiding behind her. "It's someone I used to work for," Emily replied, unsure how to explain. "May I come in so we can talk?" Robert asked. Emily hesitated, but Mrs. Margaret appeared at the door. "Emily, dear, let the man in. He says he wants to apologize." Emily entered the house with the children, and Robert followed. The house was simple but cozy. In the backyard, Robert saw the same metal tub where Emily had bathed his children, now being used to bathe a doll. "The kids like playing bath time with the doll in Aunt Emily's tub," Jack Peter explained, unaware of the irony. Emily poured water for Robert and sat at the kitchen table. The 3 children played in the yard, but stayed close, as if unwilling to leave her side. "How are Ethan and Mason?" Emily asked, unable to hide her concern. "They're in the hospital," Robert replied, watching Emily's face pale. "They got sick, pneumonia. The doctor said, they're sick with missing you." Emily covered her face, trying to hold back tears. "In the hospital? My God! Are they okay? Will they be all right?" "They will. They're already improving. But Emily, I came here to apologize and to ask you to come back." "Come back?" Emily stared at him in disbelief. "After everything you said? After humiliating me like that?" "Emily, I was wrong. Completely wrong. You cared for my children with love, and I was a prejudiced fool who only saw appearances." Emily stood and walked to the window overlooking the yard, watching the 3 children play. "Mr. Robert, these past 2 weeks have been the worst of my life. Not because I was jobless or broke, but because I love Ethan and Mason as if they were my own. And when you took me away from them like that, Emily, I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but my children aren't to blame for my mistakes. They need you. And what about these children here? Don't they need me?" Emily pointed to the backyard. "Jack Peter, Mary Elizabeth, and Brandon are orphans too. They also need love and care. They also deserve someone who loves them." Robert looked at the 3 children. Jack Peter, 6 years old, was the oldest and took on a protective role with his younger siblings. Brandon, 4, was mischievous but affectionate. Mary Elizabeth, too, was a little doll who never left Emily's side. "Are they siblings?" Robert asked. "Yes, their parents died in an accident 3 months ago. They have no other family. Mrs. Margaret took them in temporarily, but at 70 she can't raise 3 young children. I offered to care for them." "And how do you manage?" "Mrs. Margaret gets a small allowance from the church for the children. I take on some sewing jobs. It's not much, but we get by." Robert watched the backyard. The 3 children played happily despite their hardships. Jack Peter pushed Mary Elizabeth on a makeshift swing Emily had made with rope and a piece of wood. Brandon chased a cat, laughing. "Emily, what if I could help these children too?" "How?" "If you come back to care for my children, I can arrange a place for these 3 as well. A home where you can all live together. I'll cover their schooling, their basic needs." Emily eyed him suspiciously. "In exchange for what?" "In exchange for you coming back to care for Ethan and Mason. They're babies, Emily. They don't understand why you disappeared. All they know is the person they love most in the world is gone." Emily's heart ached. She missed the twins every day. She woke up at night wondering if they were okay, if they were eating well, if anyone was singing them to sleep. "Can I visit them at the hospital?" Emily asked. "Of course. You can go right now if you want." Emily looked at the 3 children in the yard. She couldn't abandon them, but she couldn't forget Ethan and Mason either. "Can Mrs. Margaret watch Jack Peter, Brandon and Mary Elizabeth for a few hours?" Emily asked. "Of course, dear. Go see the babies," replied Mrs. Margaret, who had been listening from the kitchen. In the car on the way to the hospital, Emily and Robert talked more than they had in 3 months of living together. "Emily, can I ask you something?" Robert said as he drove. "Go ahead." "Why do you dedicate yourself so much to caring for children? Why give up your own life to raise other people's kids?" Emily thought before answering. "When I was little and my parents died, I felt so lost. I was 15 and suddenly had to care for my younger siblings. It was hard, but I also discovered that caring for children gave me purpose, meaning. And you never wanted children of your own?" "I always did. But I never had the chance to date seriously, marry. I was always caring for someone. First my siblings, then my sister's children, now the kids I meet along the way. Don't you ever feel used? Taken advantage of?" Emily smiled for the first time since Robert had arrived. "Mr. Anderson, when you truly love a child, there's no feeling of being used. The love they give back is worth more than any salary." "Is that why you cared so well for Ethan and Mason?" "Yes. From the first day I saw them, my heart was theirs. They were so lost, so needy. They needed a mother, and I needed to be a mother." Robert realized he had taken far more than a nanny from his children's lives. He had taken the mother they had chosen. At the hospital, the emotion was overwhelming. As soon as Emily walked into the room, Mason, who had been listless for days, opened his arms to her. Ethan, who could barely keep his eyes open, smiled for the first time since being admitted. "My babies," Emily cried, scooping both of them into her arms. "Mummy's here. Mummy won't leave you again." Robert watched the scene and finally understood the full weight of what he had done. Emily wasn't just an employee to his children. She was their mother. Dr. Frank, who was making his rounds, paused at the door and smiled. "Now they'll truly recover," the doctor told Robert. "See the difference real love makes." Within 2 hours, the babies were visibly better. They ate every bit of the porridge Emily had prepared, slept peacefully in her arms and began playing again. "Emily," Robert said as they left the hospital, "my offer still stands. Come back to care for my children and I'll help you with the other 3. "I need to think," Emily replied. "I can't abandon Jack Peter, Brandon and Mary Elizabeth. They've already suffered so much. I'm not asking you to abandon them. I'm offering a solution for everyone. A home where all 5 children can stay together, with you caring for them." Emily spent the night thinking. Margaret, with her 70 years of wisdom, gave the advice Emily needed. "Sweetheart, sometimes in life we must accept help to help others. This man is offering you a chance to care for 5 children instead of 3. And from what you've told me, those babies were in the hospital missing you. But Margaret, what if it's just an empty promise? What if he changes his mind?" "Emily, Every risk is worth taking when it comes to love, and you love these 5 children. If there's a chance for them all to be together, you should try. The next day, Emily returned to the hospital and found Robert in the twins' room. Ethan and Mason were clearly better, but when they saw Emily, they lit up with joy. "I accept your offer," Emily said, "but with conditions." "Name them." "I want a signed contract guaranteeing that if I return to work for you, the other 3 children will be supported until they turn 18. Education, healthcare, housing." "Agreed." "I want us to live in a home separate from yours. All 5 children, me and maybe Margaret if she wants, a place where I can raise them with the values I believe in." "Agreed. I'll buy a house in the neighborhood for you. And I want respect, Mr. Robert. Never again do I want to be humiliated for trying to do what's best for the children. Emily, you have my word, and my sincerest apology. I was a prejudiced fool who nearly ruined my own children's lives out of pride." Emily extended her hand to Robert. "Then we have a deal." The twins were discharged the next day, and for the first time in 2 weeks they slept through the night. Emily had returned, and their world was whole again. Robert kept every promise. He bought a spacious house 2 streets away with a big backyard where all 5 children could play. Margaret accepted the invitation to live with them and help Emily. 3 months later, on a Sunday afternoon, Robert visited the new home to see his children. Ethan and Mason, now a year old, chased butterflies in the yard. Jack Peter was teaching Brandon how to play ball. Mary Elizabeth slept in Margaret's arms. "How's the company?" Emily asked, pouring lemonade. "Improving. I secured some new contracts." "I think we'll recover," Robert replied. "And how are you?" "Better, much better. I've learned what truly matters in life." "That's good." "Emily, can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead." "Are you happy like this? Caring for 5 children, without a life of your own?" Emily looked out into the backyard where 5 children played happily and safely. Ethan was trying to take his first steps toward Mason. Jack Peter helped Brandon fly a kite. Mary Elizabeth woke up and stretched her little arms toward Emily. "Mr. Robert, this is my life. They are my family. There's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be." Robert smiled. He had finally understood that happiness isn't measured by what you have, but by the love you give and receive. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning, Robert arrived at Emily's house with a different proposal. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something important." "What is it? Did something happen?" "Actually, yes. I realized something about myself." Emily stopped folding the baby's clothes and looked at Robert attentively. "What is it?" "I realized that I've fallen in love with you." Emily fell silent, unsure how to respond. "Emily, I know it might be too soon, that maybe you don't feel the same, but I can't pretend anymore that I come here just to see the babies. I come to see you too." "Mr. Robert." "Robert. Just Robert." "Robert, this is very complicated. I work for you. I take care of your children. What if you didn't work for me anymore? What if we were just a family, you, me, and our 5 children?" Emily sat in the rocking chair on the porch. In the backyard, the 5 children played. Ethan and Mason, now a year and a half old, chased after their 3 older siblings. It was a perfect family scene. "Robert, I've also developed feelings for you. But I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid you'll change your mind. Afraid that when the novelty wears off, you'll grow tired of this simple life. You're used to a different standard of living." "Emily, these past few months I've learned that the life I had before was empty. I worked 16 hours a day to give my children things they didn't need, and I ended up losing what they needed most: love and presence." "And the social difference? You're a college-educated businessman, and I'm a simple girl who didn't even finish high school. Emily, you've taught me more about life these past months than any college ever could. You've taught me about true love, humility, and what really matters." That night, Emily talked to Margaret about Robert's proposal. "My dear, sometimes life gives us a second chance. You lost your parents young, took care of your siblings, sacrificed your youth for others. Maybe it's time for you to be happy too." "But what if it goes wrong, Margaret? What if he grows tired of me? What if it goes right? What if you build a beautiful family together? Emily, you can't live afraid of being happy." And the children? If I marry him, will they really be accepted? Sweetheart, haven't you seen how that man has changed? He used to care only about appearances, and now he comes here every weekend to play on the floor with all 5 children. He's learned what real love is. 3 weeks later, on a rainy afternoon, Emily gave Robert her answer. "I'll marry you," she said, her eyes shining, "but on one condition. Anything. We have a simple wedding right here in the backyard, with the children, Margaret, Walter, Agnes from the hospital, Dr. Frank, our real family." Perfect. The wedding took place in the backyard, under a tree Walter had decorated with colorful lights. Emily wore a simple dress she had sewn herself. Robert wore a suit without a tie. The 5 children were the ring bearers and flower girls. Ethan and Mason, now 2 years old, ran around the yard scattering flower petals. Jack, Peter, Brandon, and Mary Elizabeth helped Margaret serve the cake she had made. "Do you promise to love and care for each other and these 5 children as a true family?" asked the neighborhood pastor. "We promise," Emily and Robert answered together. When they kissed to seal their union, the 5 children ran to hug them, forming a circle of love in the middle of the backyard. 2 years later, on a sunny morning, Emily was in the backyard, 6 months pregnant with the couple's first biological child. Ethan and Mason, now 4 years old, were helping 10-year-old Jack Peter tend to the vegetable garden they had planted. 8-year-old Brandon was teaching 6-year-old Mary Elizabeth how to ride a bike. Robert came home from work early and found this scene of domestic happiness. His company had fully recovered, but now he worked fewer hours and spent more time at home. "How was your day?" Emily asked, greeting her husband with a kiss. "Good. Closed another deal. But I can't wait to come home every day," Robert replied, stroking Emily's belly. "And how's our baby?" "Kicking a lot. I think there'll be a soccer player." "Or a soccer player," Mary Elizabeth corrected, appearing beside them. "Aunt Emily, will the baby come soon?" "Not just yet, sweetheart." That evening, after the 5 children were asleep, Emily and Robert sat on the porch to talk, as they did every night. "Emily, do you remember that day I found you bathing the babies in the washtub?" Robert asked. "How could I forget? It was the worst day of my life." "For me too. But you know what I think now?" "What?" "I think it was the most important day of our lives, because it was the day that forced me to see who I really was, a prejudiced, proud man who was losing what mattered most. And now? Now I have everything. A wife who truly loves me, 5 wonderful children and another baby on the way. A family bound by love, not obligation." Emily nestled against her husband's chest. "You know what I kept?" "What?" "The metal washtub. It's still in the shed." "Why?" "Because that's where it all began. Our story, our family, our love. When our baby is born, I want them to know how Mommy and Daddy found each other through a metal tub and a whole lot of love." Robert laughed. "Should we tell them that Mommy taught Daddy that love has nothing to do with appearances?" "Exactly, and that sometimes the best things in life come wrapped simply." 3 months later, Emily gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, whom they named Hope. On the day they brought the baby home, the 5 older children lined up to meet their little sister. "She's so tiny," Mason said, gently touching the baby's little hand. "She'll grow up and play with us," Ethan said. "I'll teach her how to play soccer," Brandon said. "I'll teach her how to ride a bike," Mary Elizabeth said. "I'll protect her from everything," Jack Peter declared, taking on the role of big brother. Margaret, now 73 but still active, held her dear granddaughter with tears in her eyes. "Emily, my dear, look at the beautiful family you've built. 6 children raised with so much love." 7, Emily corrected, pointing at Robert. "He's one of my children too. I had to teach him to see with his heart." Robert laughed and hugged the whole family. "It's true. Emily raised me all over again. She taught me that being a father isn't about giving expensive things. It's about giving love. That being a husband isn't just about providing, it's about being a partner. That being a man isn't about pride, it's about humility." That night, after everyone was asleep, Emily went to the shed and brought the metal washtub to the backyard. She filled it with warm water and gave her daughter her first bath in the same tub where it all began. "Welcome to the family, Hope," Emily whispered, pouring warm water over the baby. "You were born into a family that learned love is the only luxury that truly matters." Robert stepped into the backyard and found the scene. His wife, bathed in the moonlight, bathing their newborn daughter in the same tub that had nearly destroyed their family years before. "This is how it should be," said Robert, kneeling beside his wife. "Our daughter should know her roots. She should know she was born into a family that learned to value love above all else. And learn that it doesn't matter where you bathe your children, as long as it's with love," Emily added. They stayed there, the three of them, in the middle of the backyard, creating a new memory around that metal tub that had once caused so much pain and now symbolized so much love. 5 years later, on the morning of their anniversary, Robert woke to find Emily in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Their 6 children were still asleep, giving them a few quiet moments alone. "Good morning, love of my life," Robert said, embracing her from behind. "Good morning, my love. 7 years married today. Better yet, 7 years as a real family. Robert, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." "That day you caught me bathing the babies in the tub, when you yelled at me. I didn't just cry because you fired me." "Why else?" "Because in that moment, I realized I was in love with you. And it hurt knowing the man I loved saw me as unworthy of caring for his children." Robert turned Emily to face him. "And now? Now I know that proud man died that day. And the man I married was born, the father of our 6 children. The man who taught me love can change anyone. Emily, you saved my life. You saved my children's lives. You taught us how to be a real family. We saved each other, Robert. You gave me the chance to be a mother. I taught you how to be a father. We built this together." The children began waking up, trickling into the kitchen one by one. Ethan and Mason, now 9, helped 15-year-old Jack Peter make smoothies. 13-year-old Brandon toasted bread. 11-year-old Mary Elizabeth set the table. 5-year-old Hope handed out napkins. "Dad, Mum, we have a surprise for you," Jack Peter announced. "What surprise?" Emily asked. The 6 children ran outside and returned carrying a wooden sign. Jack Peter, who had learned woodworking in school, had carved the words, "Johnson Anderson Family, built with love, not money. Let's hang it on the gate so everyone knows a family that truly loves each other lives here," Mary Elizabeth said. Emily and Robert looked at each other with tears in their eyes. Their children had learned life's most important lesson. That afternoon, during their anniversary lunch in the backyard, Margaret, now 78 but still sharp and active, raised a toast. "I want to toast this family, who taught me love has no age limit for starting over. When I took in Emily and the 3 children, I thought I was doing a favor. I didn't know I was gaining a family." Walter, now retired but a regular visitor, lifted his glass. "I want to toast witnessing the greatest transformation I've ever seen, watching a man learn to truly love, and a woman receive the love she always deserved." Frank, the family doctor and close friend, added, "As a physician, I can say this is the healthiest family I know, because they've been healed by love." Catherine, the nurse who had cared for the twins in the hospital, was moved. "Seeing these children today so happy and secure reminds me why I chose to care for children. Love heals everything." After everyone left and the children were asleep, Emily and Robert sat on the porch for their nightly ritual. "Robert, do you think we're a normal couple?" Emily asked. "Normal how?" "I don't know." "A businessman married to a former nanny, raising 6 children, 3 of them adopted orphans." "Emily, there's no such thing as a normal family. There are families that love each other and families that don't. Ours does." "And you don't regret it? Trading the life of a successful businessman for this life as a father to a large family?" "Emily, I've made more money in the last 5 years than in the 10 before that. You know why?" "Why?" "Because now I work for love, not ego. I work to support my family, not to impress anyone. And that's made me a better businessman." "And you don't miss your bachelor life? The parties, the freedom?" "What freedom, Emily? I was a slave to work, to status, to appearances. Now I'm free to be myself, to love and be loved. Emily nestled into her husband's chest. I love you, Robert. I love you even more, Emily. And you know what I'm proudest of? What? That our 6 kids are growing up knowing love is the most important thing in life. They'll never make the mistakes I made. How can you be so sure? Just look at how they care for each other. Ethan and Mason don't see any difference between their biological and adopted siblings. Jack Peter protects all the younger ones. Brandon shares everything with everyone. Mary Elizabeth looks after Hope as if she were her own daughter. Hope loves all her siblings equally. It's true, they teach us about love every day. And do you know who taught them that? Who? You, Emily. You've treated every child as your own from day one. You've never made a distinction between rich and poor, between yours and others. The following week, Jack Peter came home from school with an essay he'd written about family. Mom, Dad, I want to read my essay to you, said the 15-year-old. Of course, son, we'd love to hear it, said Emily, stopping what she was doing. Jack Peter cleared his throat and began, My family is different from most families I know. I have 5 siblings, but only 2 are my parents' biological children. The other 3 of us are orphans, who were adopted out of love, not paperwork. My mother didn't give birth to us, but she gave us new life. My father didn't create us, but he taught us to be men of character. My biological siblings don't share my blood, but they share my heart. I've learned that family isn't about DNA. It's about love. It's not about where you're born, but where you're chosen to be loved. It's not about having lots of money, but about having lots of care. My family has taught me that the world is full of children who need love, and that there's always room in your heart for one more. They've taught me that helping others doesn't make you poor. It makes you truly rich. When I grow up, I want a family just like mine. Big, blended, bound by love, and always open to anyone who needs a home. Emily was crying by the time Jack Peter finished. Son, where did you learn to write such beautiful things? She asked. By watching you live, Mom. You didn't need to teach me with words. You taught me by example. Robert hugged his eldest son. Jack Peter, I'm so proud of you, not just for your good grades, but for the man you're becoming. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. When you look at me, Brandon and Mary Elizabeth, do you ever forget we're not your biological kids? Jack Peter, I forgot that a long time ago. You're my children, period. It doesn't matter if you came from Mommy's womb or her heart. And you're not afraid that when we grow up we'll leave and forget about you? Emily knelt in front of the boy. My son, you can go wherever life takes you. Follow your dreams, live far away if you need to. But never forget, you'll always have a home here, always have a family here, always have our love here. Even if I mess up, even if I disappoint you. Jack Peter, there's nothing you could ever do to make us stop loving you. Nothing. Do you understand that? The boy hugged Emily and Robert. I do. And I hope you understand that I love you both forever too. The end. Dear reader, what did you think of this story of transformation and love? Leave a comment sharing which part moved you the most and whether you believe forgiveness can truly change a family. Your heartfelt words mean so much to us.